Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 411th Flight Test Squadron Change of Command Ceremony. Today you will witness Lieutenant Colonel David R. Schmidt assume command of the 411th Flight Test Squadron. The presiding officer for today's ceremony is the 412th Operations Group Commander, Colonel Timothy J. Spaulding. I'm Captain Kyle Matisak, and I'm honored to serve as the Master of Ceremonies for today's event. For the purposes of military protocol, this is considered an indoor ceremony. Military members should stand at attention during the national anthem and should not salute. We invite civilian guests to participate by placing their hands over their hearts and standing during the national anthem. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome our civilian and military distinguished guests in attendance today. We ask that you please hold your applause until everybody has been introduced. We would like to extend a warm welcome to Colonel Spaulding's wife, Dory. We'd also like to extend a warm welcome to Lieutenant Colonel Robarge's wife, Nicole, their daughters, Leah and Tessa, and son, Alex, as well as his mother-in-law, B.J. Atkinson. We would also like to extend a warm welcome to Lieutenant Colonel Schmidt's wife, Jessica, their daughters, Olivia and Isabel, his father, Robert Schmidt, his mother, Marion Schmidt, his brother, Stephen Schmidt, and from the 412th Test Wing, Brigadier General Matthew Higer, Commander, and Mr. Daniel Osborne, Technical Director. We welcome all colleagues, friends, and coworkers who have come to pay special tribute to Lieutenant Colonel Robarge and Lieutenant Colonel Schmidt. We thank you for attending. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in a round of applause for all of our distinguished guests. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for the presentation of the colors by our Blue Eagles Honor Guard, singing of our national anthem by Mr. Robert Schmidt, and the invocation provided by Chaplain Wilson Joyu.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
invite you all to join me in prayer. Lord, thank you for your guidance today. It is you who knows all, and you are the one who lead us here today. Lord, I pray that you will be with Lieutenant Colonel Robosh as he complete his command duty. As he and his family going on their next adventure, I pray that your spirit will be with them. Keep them safe on the road and use them to influence those around them. Lord, I pray for Lieutenant Colonel Schmidt as he becomes commander of this flight, that your wisdom will guide him through your grace. Lay upon him your knowledge and use him to be effective. Lord, let your grace be upon him. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you, Chaplain Joe Yu. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Today's change of command ceremony is deeply rooted in military tradition and dates back to the reign of King Frederick of Prussia. During this time, organizational flags were developed with color arrangements and symbols unique to each unit. When a change of command was to take place, the outgoing commander would pass the flag to the individual assuming command. This gesture was accomplished in front of the unit so that all could see and witness their new leader assuming command. The symbolic transition has survived through military history and will be a part of our ceremony today. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to introduce Colonel Timothy J. Spaulding, Commander, 412th Operations Group.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's always an honor to be part of a change of command in any context. It is especially an honor to be part of a change of command in Raptor Nation. You have not lived until you've stood here on a beautiful day with that flag and that airplane behind you. It's probably nothing new to the folks, yes, thank you, Les. It's nothing new to the folks of you that work here, but our guests. This airplane is significant, and the men and the women here at the Raptor Task Force are what keep its edge. It's the very peak of American air power. So even to be here and play whatever small part is truly an honor. So thank you for being here. A special thanks to a few folks that made this possible. PA, thanks for making all of these possible. I know that you got 11 things happening on today, and I appreciate that we're one of them. Protocol, Mina and your team, thank you. And I know you're in go time for the next 6 weeks, so thanks for helping us stay straight. This particular ceremony doesn't happen without a ton of maintenance support and a ton of security support to be here in this facility. So thanks for the teams that made all that happen. And specifically, Lieutenant Matasek, Mr. Chatasco, Ms. Hamlin, Ms. Guerra. There would be no ceremony without you guys, so thank you for taking your time to put it on. Sergeant Esperanza, Airman Bleasdale, thank you also for your participation. Chaplain, thank you for your blessing on this event. And then finally, I wanted to please get a round of applause for Mr. Bob Schmidt for the rendition of the national anthem. Thank you for doing that. It was awesome. Wing leadership, thanks for being here. General Heiger, thank you. Colonel Gordon, I know this is the house that Colonel Gordon built, so you're always welcome back here. Mr. Osborne, thank you for being here as well. It's an honor to have you present. Nikki, Alex, Leah, Tessa, of course, we're thrilled to have you in the house again. BJ, thank you for joining us as well. It's a pleasure to meet you today and have you here. Jessica, Olivia, Isabel, welcome to the family in a new way, although you've been part of the family already. Rob and Marianne, thank you for coming down from Seattle, and Stephen, thank you for joining as well. And all the other friends and family that made their way here from various parts of the world. The change of command is a ceremony. We don't actually have to do it. Like, all the paperwork would just happen, whether or not we're here. But it's a chance for us to celebrate, and it's a chance for us to recognize what is a significant transition. It's a celebration, obviously, of these two individuals, of Matrix and Basher, and it's a celebration of the work that they have done and will do, and the work that indeed you here in the task force do as well on behalf of both the United States and our allies. I just want to pause just 1 second on that point. We're standing here in front of a flag on the cusp of a Memorial Day, a chance when we're going to sit down and think about the Americans who gave the last full measure of devotion and the most precious gift that anyone has on behalf of their country. So as we reflect on that, I just want to talk about your work here. It's been since the Korean War that our American soldiers have been all around the world fighting on behalf of our democracy and others. But it's been since the Korean War when they've had to look up to the sky and wonder what was above them. They've had many worries that they carried with them. Who controlled the air has never been one of them since that time. If you're like me, like us, maybe, we've taken that for granted. It's just a thing that's existed as long as we've existed. But the truth is, it's not an American birthright. It's been created and kept whole by not only this group, but now this group, the men and women that maintain, create, and perfect the machine like that behind us. So celebrate yourselves and all you do this weekend. But it's also a formal recognition. So the celebration is there, but the recognition is there because we're passing the responsibility of command from one human being to another. And command is not a job, although there's job stuff to do. Right? Yes. It's not a title or a position, although there's a title and there's a position. It's really a responsibility, and it's a privilege, and it's an honor that we do not bestow lightly. We only give it to the people who've shown that they are ready to give the full measure of their integrity and their service and their excellence. Lieutenant Colonel Robarge, Matrix, Tyler, what's his first name, Tyler? Matrix, we don't use it very often. You're not in trouble, by the way. Matrix was certainly somebody who paid it back in that way. In a second, we're going to bring him up and we're going to read some formal accomplishments from his time as the commander, so I don't want to harp on those. I want to talk more broadly about what Matrix meant to this community. I think the first thing to note is that Matrix had an opportunity to lead this group through one of the most transformational periods that it has experienced in a long time. The Raptor has been here for a while. It has been improving for a while, but forces of improvement have converged on it now in order to grow this enterprise back into something closer to what it was when it was at its fullest. That is not an easy job to do. That is not tending the store. That is plowing new ground, and that is creating new things. And Matrix, you've done an outstanding job doing that. It turns out that Matrix was well poised as well to lead in a time of some rapid dislocation. We had lots of rapid dislocations this year. You may have noticed that. And to be a leader in this time required all of the skills of leadership. And that's something that Matrix brought to this organization in spades. A couple of things I want to highlight about that. One is when we first began to realize what we needed to do to continue to operate this organization in COVID, everybody was asked to step a little bit outside of what would have been their normal job jar. And nobody more than Matrix Robarge, who, although he led a large organization, he truly didn't have his hands on the reins of that large organization. That's by design. That's the way we're set up. But it wasn't time to just say, well, this part I don't really control, and that part I don't really control, and boy, that would be really tough to get that to maneuver in the right way. He could have said that, right? And he could have hunkered down and said, well, we'll just kind of see how it goes. He didn't. He stepped up and said, well, now it's the time for me, because it's only me, because I'm the only one that can do this, and I am in the position to do this, to figure out how all of us are going to operate together in this. So take yourselves back a year and a half now, and think about that chaos, and think about what it took to lead through that chaos, and do the hard work to get all of those strings together, and to take this CTF first offline to make sure we knew where we were, and then back online in a safe way. That not only kept this airplane safe, viable, and progressing on behalf of the American warfighter, but also kept all of you and all of us safe on behalf of ourselves and our families. So thank you, Matrix. I won't surprise anybody to tell you that Matrix also remained absolutely unflappable throughout all of that. And probably that's the most salient characteristic of Matrix leadership, I would say. I'm not sure unflappability is an adjective, but if it is, it should be. It takes a very steady hand to experience the up and downs of command and the challenges that it gives, and to remain steady at the helm and unflappable. And that's absolutely what you did. Finally, one more thing. This is an oddity of how we've progressed as an Air Force and who goes where, but Matrix, we gave you, I believe, one of the biggest pools of talent that has ever existed in the Air Force Flight Test Center. And I don't say that just because I'm here at your change of command. I say that because, honestly, we handed you probably one of the greatest pools of talent in the Air Force Test Center's history. And so that's actually a pretty hard leadership challenge when you have that. What do you do? And I think the metaphor that I want to use for you, Matrix, is that you were a gardener. You took all of that talent and you said, let's find out what they can do if I can plant them and let them grow and do what they're going to do. Which means, by the way, letting go of some of them. Letting them do things like Orange Flag. Letting them move into new areas that weren't your idea but were theirs. And I promise you that those plants are growing. And for literally a generation, we will benefit from that gardening. So thank you, Matrix. Speaking of gardening, Nikki, You are a gardener alongside Matrix all along. The abundant community that is the Raptor community doesn't just happen on its own. It doesn't happen without people tending it, watering it, caring for it, and making sure it can grow. Thank you for being a part of this community, despite all of the other things you had going on in your life. The people here thank you for it. I thank you for it, and they will long remember it. Matrix, we're going to miss you. We're very pleased that you're not leaving the Air Force and that you actually move on to a far broader and grander gardening challenge at the United States Air Force Academy. I commend you for following your heart into that work, and I know that for years and years and years, all of us will benefit from the seeds that you produce. More matrices. That's the plural matrix, right? At the Air Force Academy. Math joke. All right. To the new commander, Lieutenant Colonel David. David, that's his first name. We don't use that very often either. Basher Schmidt. I don't actually need to introduce Basher to most of you because Basher has been around this organization a couple of times and spent the last year as the DO. So I'm not going to do a ton of that, but I want to point out that Basher comes to you prepared like few other to lead the 411th to its next level of excellence. And for at least one very specific reason is that Basher represents the sea change in the Raptor community because Basher is a Raptor baby. So if you don't understand what I mean, it means that Basher started his Air Force aviation career in the F-22 Raptor and has basically stayed in it the entire time, going from student to young wingman to instructor to test pilot and then now to test leader. You won't be the last, but you're the first. And it's a new day for Raptor and an awesome one. So we're looking forward to seeing what both you and your generation will do. But I do want to say a couple of things about Basher, just by way of biography, because I think it's important. You can read the details, and it's important. This is where I'm going to insert the embarrassing story about Basher's youth, which I literally pumped his mother for about an hour ago, and she apparently did this once at an RTU graduation and learned her lesson and didn't give me anything, zero. But she did point out that Basher was a guy, and this will surprise no one, that didn't get encouraged to go to the Air Force Academy, and he didn't get encouraged to fly. He came to his parents and said, hey, by the way, this is what I'm going to go do. I'm going to be a pilot. And by the way, this is where I'm going to go. I'm going to go to the United States Air Force Academy. And indeed he did. And his resume from that point forward is literally a success story after a success story inside of a success story. Graduate school back in Washington, near home, Euro-Niger jet pilot training, IFF, RTU in the Raptor at the time, the peak thing that anyone could ever get out of pilot training, on to Langley, where he destroyed everybody in his path by his excellence, SOS, test pilot school, the 411th, on to Europe for a staff gig, and back to the 411th. It's a truly eye-watering resume. But honestly, that's not what's important, because there's a lot of people out there with eye-watering resumes. What's important about Basher is if you don't know that, and you meet him, and you work with him, you will say to yourself, there's something about that guy. I don't know what it is. There's something about that guy. And then someday later, you'll turn the page on the resume and you'll go, that's what I was seeing. That doesn't always happen, right? So the paper, the man, totally merge up. You guys are in for a treat with him as a commander. And then the final thing I want to say about you, Basher, is that Basher has, in my mind anyway, developed a reputation for a bias toward action. Talk is cheap. Thinking about things is easy. Doing them is hard. Writing the papers and presenting them at the conference is hard. Actually figuring out what's going on with people's breathing at advanced cockpits is hard. Getting watches allowed into your CTF is very hard. But he's the kind of guy that gets a good idea and then sees it all the way through. That is also rare. So thank you, Basher, for that. And you guys will all get to benefit from that as well. Finally, Jessica, Olivia, Isabel, welcome again to the family in a new way. I know you've been in the family before, but welcome to the command side of the family. We're stoked to have you on board and to have you as part of this team. Basher, that's all I want to embarrass you about. Matrix, that's all I want to embarrass you about, although we're going to get you further in a little bit. Kyle, without further ado, we're ready to go to a medal? Yes, sir. All right, standing, let's get started.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand. Colonel Spaulding will now present the Meritorious Service Medal to Lieutenant Colonel Tyler W. Robarge. Attention to orders. Citation to accompany the award of the Meritorious Service Medal, 2nd Oak Leaf Cluster, to Lieutenant Colonel Tyler W. Robarge, 10 July 2018, to 30 July 2021. Lieutenant Colonel Tyler Robards distinguished himself in the performance of outstanding service to the United States as a commander and Combined Task Force Director, 411th Flight Test Squadron, 412th Operations Group, 412th Test Wing, Edwards Air Force Base, California. During this period, Colonel Robards led the F-22 test enterprise through one of its busiest periods, simultaneously modernizing software and avionics, expanding the flight envelope for external stores and fuel tanks, and enabling the development and fielding of the Air Force's next-generation air-to-air weapon. Working with the broader Raptor community, he kept multiple programs on track, despite significant technical discovery and programmatic challenges. To enable this, he tirelessly worked to coordinate maintenance across a combined military, civilian, and contract workforce, forging one unified team and earning him the 412th Maintenance Group's Mission Partner Award in 2019. Finally, in the face of the global COVID pandemic, Lieutenant Colonel Robards rapidly recognized the task force and worked with multiple stakeholders to ensure both the safety of personnel and continuous test operations. Across a year of changing conditions and threats, his leadership was thoughtful, bold, and responsible for the continued success of the F-22 test enterprise. The singularly distinctive accomplishments of Colonel Robards reflect great credit upon himself and the United States Air Force. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. It is my pleasure to introduce Lieutenant Colonel Tyler W. Robards.
Thank you, Kyle. General Heiger, Colonel Gordon, Mr. Osborne, all the other distinguished visitors we have with us, colleagues, friends, members of the Raptor CTF family, thank you all for being here today. This is definitely an exciting day. Most important thing I have to say today is thank you, and I've got a lot of them, so bear with me. First, the organizers of this event, I guarantee you something like this does not happen. Kyle, holy cow, man, I gave you a task, you knocked it out of the park. Fantastic job. Thank you for that. Fred, I saw you somewhere. Thank you for your efforts, script, programs, the stage, so much more. To Cheryl for the lunch yesterday, for arranging the flowers this morning, and for helping me remember the things that I forget. Thank you for that. Erica, Kira, Carrie, Alicia, all the others that helped with the final details of programs, etc. Thank you. Mr. Schmidt, thank you for the national anthem. That was amazing. Chaplain Joyu, saw you somewhere. Thank you for your invocation this afternoon. Blue Eagles Honor Guard may have already split, but again, fantastic job as always. Sardini, thanks for standing up here today when the rest of us get to sit. Awesome job. Like the boss said, to the maintenance team that got this hangar together, that got this gorgeous airplane ready, thank you for doing that, for honoring us with your support. To security, to public affairs, to everybody else that made this come together, escorts, proffers, etc. Thank you so much to everybody. To the commanders I've had the privilege of serving under, General Heiger, Colonel Spaulding, your predecessors, General Teichert, Colonel Spinelli, thanks for your trust. Thanks for the privilege of commanding in the United States Air Force. To my fellow commanders and directors, I see some of you out there. Thank you for your support today. Thank you for the camaraderie that we had over the last 2 years. It's definitely an interesting time, and the ability to just talk and sound things out meant the world. To Raptor Nation, I know we don't have too many here. Ashley, thanks for coming. Thanks for representing the contractor workforce. Nothing we do happens in isolation to the CTF. It happens as part of the broader Raptor Enterprise team. So to the program office, to the contractor workforce, to the operational test community and the CAF, we have deep ties here at the CTF, and that is critical. To Team Schmidt, first to Basher's family and friends, thank you for coming, for honoring us with your presence. I know it's not an easy trip, but I know Dave really appreciates it, and the rest of the family as well. To Jessica, Olivia, and Isabel, congratulations. This is a big day. I know Dave is really proud of you guys as well, and he's really fortunate to have your amazing support. Nikki and I are truly grateful for the friendship that you guys have had over the years, the support that you've given us. And for Basher. So when I realized about a week ago I should start thinking about what I wanted to say today, I didn't really know what I should say. I realized I didn't really know what a change of command on the outgoing side sounded like. And so I did what I always did when I don't know what to do when I've got a problem, which is I asked Basher what I should do. So believe me when I say you guys are in good hands. He gave me solid advice, and I could not have asked for a better DO. I'm really glad that our scheme that we hatched up at SCTP 2018 at lunch came together like it did. To my family, you know I'm going to have to keep this short because I get emotional, and that's not a good thing today. To BJ, thanks for coming. Thanks for your support over the years. To my mom and dad who'll be watching at home, I know you wanted to be here. I want you here, but you're here in spirit, and thanks for getting me on a good, glide path. To Nikki, Leah, Alex, Tessa, thank you for your love, for support, for putting up with the long days, with the short nights. Nikki in particular, thanks for your energy and support of the people at the 411th. It really did make a difference. This is a big day for me. It's a big day for Basher, but it's ultimately inconsequential for the CTF. And that's because the work of the CTF isn't done by me. It's not done by Basher. It's not done by any CTF director. It's done by the people of the Raptor CTF. You guys are the ones that carry the fight forward, and they'll be carrying the fight forward long after I leave the stage. And so thank you for what you're doing, executing the mission, taking care of each other day in and day out. I took command on June 18th, 2019. There's a lot of ways that you can measure the span since then. It's just shy of 2 years. It's 23 months, 709 days, had over 17,000 hours. In some ways it was a lifetime, but in many ways it was an instant. It's been an eventful 2 years, to say the least. The boss kind of hit on some of that. First off, the pace of this CTF, the execution we're doing, has changed dramatically in that 2 years. If you put yourself in the time machine, think back to where we were in June of 2019. We were in the depths of Update 6, and more 10 counts than you could shake a stick at. It was the program that seemed like it would never end. It did eventually, but it was the kind of program the CTF was used to. It was reliable, it was steady, it was steady state. We had interesting work on the horizon, but it was always still on the horizon. Today, we are solidly in execution. Colonel Spaulding talked about it a little bit. I'm not going to go into detail, but we have got 3 major programs, all executing this week, that are in greater size and scope than what Update 6 was by itself 2 years ago. That's not counting all the other stuff that we're not going to talk about here. There is a ton on the plate, and this team has been equal to the challenge. Gone are the days of 1 test mission a day, and definitely not on Mondays, because we don't do that. This team has stepped up to meet the demand signal that our customer, the warfighter and the combatant commands have asked for. Our hard work has paid off as well. We have tested, developed, and matured technology that will prove its worth should the nation call upon it, and that will be the backbone of the Raptor of 2025, of beyond, of however long the Air Force needs it to provide that American air superiority that we depend on and that is taken for granted these days. All of you in the CTF should be justly proud of the work you've done to execute and maintain that pace and the products we've delivered to the warfighter. But it's not been easy, and it's definitely not been without some pain along the way. The pace at which we're executing would be crushing under the best of circumstances. And I don't need to tell you these are not the best of circumstances. There's been many late nights. I've gotten way more emails and messages from you guys on Saturdays and Sundays than I should be getting, so knock that stuff off. I've said many times, you have to create balance in your life. The Air Force will continue to take. Keep that for yourself. Earn that for yourself, because it won't happen otherwise. But we've executed our mission of safe, secure, effective, and efficient flight test. I've also said many times that if we need to degrade from one of those, we're going to do it in reverse order. We're going to drop off efficiency And then if we have to, we'll drop off effectiveness. And if we have to, we'll drop off security, but we will keep safety first among all. I can say from 2 years' experience, there's no greater burden for a commander than wondering what if the worst will happen and somebody will get lost in line of duty doing something that you ordered them to do. So thank you for making this a safe 2 years, and I can assure you that that does not just happen. It's not just an accident. It happens because of the work that you all have done in putting safety at the forefront and carrying that forward. Please continue that as well. I do need to mention that while we didn't lose anybody in the line of duty, we did experience deep loss within the CTF. 3 CTF members passed away during my time here, all of them sudden, all of them painful, and that was tough. It's when the times are tough that we find out what we're really made of and what this unit is made of. We pride ourselves, and we have the saying that we are one world-class team. I was asked recently whether that's true, whether that's a statement of fact or whether that's a statement of aspiration. And I think the reality is it's probably a little bit of both. There's certainly room to improve, but I think that when the going is rocky and the way ahead is unclear, that's when the true colors of this unit shine. And I can't think of anything more rocky or unclear than the COVID-19 pandemic that we've been dealing with for the last 15 years. Swan, I think you said it best yesterday, and then 2020 happened. That pretty much sums it up. Those were times that were unprecedented, certainly in our history, and that hopefully will remain unique in our history. In those early days of confusion and uncertainty, we showed that we were indeed one world-class team. As we communicated, as we looked out for one each other, and as we deliberately adjusted to keep the mission going under a new normal. I'm proud of the work that the CTF has done, delivering capability for the warfighter, but nothing makes me more proud than the way we handled the early days of the pandemic. We set the standard on the Edwards flight line, and we established a trust in the CTF that continues to this day. So in some ways, these last 2 years have felt like 17,000 hours at times, but in many more ways, they felt like an instant. I've got one final thought before we get on with the business of today. At the beginning, I thanked General Heiger, Colonel Spaulding for the opportunity to command in the Air Force. I sincerely meant that. But there's a difference between being a commander and a leader. A commander is appointed by those higher up. It's published by an order. We're going to hear that order here in a minute. But being a commander is a sign of trust, and it's a sacred responsibility. But a leader is not appointed by somebody above. A leader is created when others choose to follow. It can't be directed, it must be earned. And it's also a sacred duty. So to each of you that chose to follow me over the last 2 years, I say thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity of a lifetime, for giving me the opportunity to lead you. It's truly been a privilege and an honor. And while it'll be bittersweet to pass the guide on here in just a moment, I take great comfort in knowing that there is nobody better that could be receiving that guide on than the gentleman sitting here to my left. I've known Basher for 6 years. We've been co-workers, flight lead and wingman, test 1 and test 2, superior and subordinate, and definitely friends. Basher is soon going to have the title of commander, but he already has the designation of leader, and I know that because he routinely leads me. Basher, you got an incredible team that's looking forward to having you as commander. Lead them well. Godspeed to you, and Godspeed to the Raptor CTF. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Robards. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed with the change of command ceremony. Please stand. The passing of the colors symbolizes the passing of command and is done in a ceremony so that all may witness the changing of leadership responsibilities. Lieutenant Colonel Robards will now relinquish command of the 411th Flight Test Squadron. Then Lieutenant Colonel Schmidt will assume command of the 411th Flight Test Squadron from Colonel Spaulding. Attention orders. Department of the Air Force, Headquarters, United States Air Force, Washington, D.C. Special Order Number GO2103, dated 10 March 2021. Under the provisions of Air Force Instruction 51-604, By order of Colonel Timothy J. Spaulding, Commander, 412th Operations Group, Lieutenant Colonel David R. Schmidt is hereby appointed as Commander of the 411th Flight Test Squadron, effective 27 May 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Customary for flying units is the commander's name on the unit's flagship aircraft. Please direct your attention to the F-22 Raptor Tail 4132, where Technical Sergeant Joshua Hines, crew chief, will salute and welcome the new commander by unveiling Lieutenant Colonel Schmidt's name on the F-22. Ladies and gentlemen, the commander of the 411th Flight Test Squadron, Colonel David Schmidt.
Thank you. Thank you, Sergeant Hines. General Heiger, Colonel Gordon, Mr. Osborne, Colonel Spaulding, thank you so much for your faith and your confidence in my ability to lead such a wonderful team in such an important mission. Chief Ireland, fellow directors, commanders, fellow testers, fellow classmates, family and friends, thank you all for being here today, both live and virtually, to show your support on such an awesome day. It truly means a lot to me. Matrix, thank you for setting such a great example over the last 2 years. You have given me such a phenomenal team, and you've set the bar incredibly high. Thank you so much for your mentorship and your friendship over the last 2 years. Mom, Dad, I know it was not easy to make the trip down here, but it means the world to me that you're here and for the love and support that you've given me over the years. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Olivia, Isabel, you guys make my day brighter every day when I come home. Thank you for being here today to make this day just that much more bright. And Jess, I wouldn't be standing here without you standing by my side, so from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And last, but most assuredly not least, to the men and women of the CTF, it is truly an honor and a privilege to be standing here in front of you today. I first stepped into the doors of the CTF back in 2015. I remember sitting right about over there and looking up at then Lieutenant Colonel Gordon, standing in this spot here, although it was down the road just a bit. And I remember thinking how wonderful it would be to someday be standing in exactly that spot. And it is truly awe-inspiring to be standing here many years later. Leading this team and flying this jet is a dream come true. And I know you already know that, but from the bottom of my heart, that is absolutely the truth. And speaking of dreams, Hooter, I know you didn't think you would still be around when a Raptor baby made it all the way back to be the director here. You're old as dirt, but you've made it. Congratulations to you as well. You've come full circle. Colonel Spaulding, I'm glad to see that we're in sync already on our comments. I'm going to play the same theme that you did. April 15th, 1953. Colonel Spaulding mentioned it. On that day, American soldiers in the battlefield of the Korean War looked up in the sky and saw MiGs diving towards them and took fire from above and experienced that helpless terror of not being able to do anything about it. That was 68 years ago. And in the over 68 years since that day, no American soldier has been attacked by enemy fire from above. In all those years, American soldiers have been able to hear the sound of jet noise above them, and the sound of freedom was the sound of American and Allied jets keeping them safe. 68 years. That is air dominance. For almost 7 decades, U.S. and Allied militaries have developed an unflinching faith that the skies above them were commanded by friends. Air dominance. From the F-86 Sabre to the F-4 and the Century Series, to the C Model Eagle, and now to the Mighty Raptor, our charge has been to sustain and perpetuate that legacy of air dominance into the future. But air dominance is not a birthright. It has been hard-earned by decades of men and women who have designed and flew, tested, built, and maintained these phenomenal aircraft. And as we sit here today, that air dominance is under attack. I can tell you from the bottom of my heart, it's the only airplane I've ever really wanted to fly, and the only one I've flown operationally, that this airplane was and still is the greatest aircraft in the skies. But our adversaries are chipping away at that dominance every day. Raptors, we are on the front lines of renewed great power competition. Each and every day in this CTF, we are executing our wartime mission. Each and every day, we compete with our Russian and Chinese counterparts to keep this airplane just that much further ahead than whatever they can produce. Each and every day, we make sure that American soldiers can look up into the sky with relief and hope and joy for decades still to come. Each and every day, we compete to be the very best versions of ourselves with nothing less than the proud legacy of air dominance at stake. Raptors, the nation and me could not ask for a finer team to carry on that legacy on this grand stage. They've placed the future of air dominance in your capable hands. Let's get after it. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Schmidt. Lieutenant Colonel Schmidt and Mrs. Schmidt, the men and women of the 411th Flight Test Squadron welcome you. In keeping with the Air Force tradition, we conclude today's ceremony with the playing of the Air Force song. While it is customary for Air Force members to stand, we invite all of our guests to join us in standing and singing the Air Force song during the departure of the official party.